During the COVID-19 pandemic, there have been heroes of all kinds. Of course, our healthcare providers, but also there are individuals in communities running not-for-profits that pre-COVID, they were doing amazing things, but then they really rose to the challenge to help close disparities, especially for youth. Dana Rachlin heads up NYC Together. She has an approach that is an entire ecosystem of not just handing out help, such as mentoring to disadvantaged youth who are no longer in school in the Greenpoint section of New York. But she's also advocating for youth, advocating to get them laptops and Wi-Fi hotspots, and then getting adults to mentor them so that they are not falling through the cracks, which they often do. Dana has a point of view on volunteerism that is very, very interesting. She was named a Daily Point of Light by Points of Light a number of years ago. Her point of view on volunteerism is that not all volunteerism is an Instagram photo, where she sees a real opportunity for volunteerism, especially for people who want to help create new solutions and new systems, is not just serve food in a soup kitchen, but help individuals to learn how to grow food, how to sell food, such as hydroponic opportunities in inner cities where there are food deserts, and then eat the food. An entire 360-degree system, whether it's helping kids with education, helping them get summer jobs that you'll learn from her conversation with me, just truly making an impact. And so volunteering can truly be as intellectual as well as hands-on to truly make a long-term impact. Dana Rachlin and New York City Together.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So Dana, tell us where in the New York area you are, and then what you are doing to help people during the pandemic.
Sure. So I am located in Greenpoint, which is in North Brooklyn. And my organization, NYC Together, does direct service throughout North Brooklyn. And then we do some advising and policy work throughout the entire city. So we have touch points all over the city, but we mostly focus on direct service with youth in North Brooklyn. So neighborhoods ranging from East New York, Brownsville, Bed-Stuy, Williamsburg, Greenpoint, all those types, Crown Heights. So that's our catchment area.
And so you founded NYC Together when?
NYC Together was founded 5 years ago, actually May 5th, 2015. So we're coming up on our 5-year anniversary.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. So obviously our big plans are quite different now. But it was founded 5 years ago, and it was born out of this idea that we can change what is happening in communities by shifting culture around policing. And essentially, I was working in the criminal justice reform space for 5 years, and specifically with young people who were touching the system. And all of those young people had two things in common. One, their communities were really over-policed, and the police constantly had an eye on them. And two, their schools were constantly targeting them for punitive measures like suspension and expulsion. We said, why are we waiting for young people to get into the justice system to change the trajectory? Why don't we change the culture inside of their schools and inside of their communities with police, which really puts the onus on the adults and people with power like police officers and school educators to change how we interact with young people and see that we cannot provide criminal solutions to social problems. We launched that in 2015.
Yeah.
And since then, we've grown from a small idea/project into working citywide with major elected, celebrities, and most importantly, with decision makers within the Department of Ed and the New York City Police Department to kind of shift their mindsets around how they function.
And why did this issue touch you so much?
I mean, the issue of why it is really a personal responsibility that I felt. I grew up in Staten Island, in the South Shore. I never saw people of color. I was really in an insulated community until I went to high school. And then after high school and college, I went to a college that I had, no people of color almost in any of my classes. Ends up my best friend from college was a black girl, or is a black girl from Senegal. She's still my best friend. And I said, what's happening here? It's not about choice. It's about opportunity. It's about access. And then when I went to work in Staten Island, I was working in the court system, and everybody that looked like me had a lot of power and was making decisions. And everybody that was a person of color was, having to live with those decisions. And that is really what interests me, is how do we create equity, and how do we understand in our own community that equity is good for everybody. Our humanity is found in how we behave in moments of crisis and how we level the playing field. And so the greatest gift I've ever been given was the ability to work within these systems, but with young people that are truly transformative in their thinking, and they're really quite wonderful and deserve only the best from everybody else.
Can you shift a bit to the coronavirus? And certainly we have seen how it's had over-indexed impacts on people of color, people with less means, and how you've shifted NYC Together to continue on your path to providing and fighting for equity.
One thing that I learned really quickly in my working before I even started the nonprofit, was that there was this scarcity of resources except for the justice system, right? So we don't have enough money to make this park look nice. We don't have enough money to, fix these roads or create economic opportunity, but we definitely have enough money for police officers. And so something that we've done from the very beginning is said, okay, what are the resources that the city and state are willing to allocate to these communities? And then how do you make those resources work for the community? And so in Corona, we did the same exact thing. I knew as soon as they closed schools that when they're saying, okay, we're going to get laptops and Wi-Fi and all this other stuff out, I knew that there was no way that they were going to be able to mobilize to get to my students in a timely fashion. And I knew that my students were going to schools that often marginalized them to begin with, and they already had a hard time engaging in the education process. So they weren't going to be able to advocate for themselves, and their families were under all this stress as well. I take on a philosophy like, I'm not going to wait for anybody else to do anything. And in that week from lockdown to starting remote learning, we reached out to some folks in the hip hop community that we partner with, Cinematic Records. And we said, hey, we have to raise money ASAP, and we have to buy all of our kids Wi-Fi hotspots and laptops. And, the hip hop community is wonderful to us. So Ebro in the morning on Hot 97 started talking about the issue, and Cinematic Records offered a record deal, a $50,000 record deal to one lucky person. And in order to submit your music, you had to make a $20 donation. And so from there, in 1 week, we were able to raise $10,000. And then you say, okay, now you have the laptops. What do you do with them? We mobilized the NYPD in their protective gear to help us make those deliveries to all these young people to make sure that they got it. So when virtual learning started, our kids were able to participate. Additionally, we raised money so that we could hire people that were laid off due to COVID to be educational advocates and virtual tutors for our young people. So right now, our young people have somebody checking in with them every day, going over their classwork, being an advocate for them with their teachers, were saying, oh, you didn't turn this assignment in or it wasn't done right. Well, now you have an adult getting on the phone, getting an email, say, hold on, I worked on that assignment with them. I know that that was done, right? So that's crucially important. And additionally, we raised money so that we can do a learn and earn program. So our young people have the ability to earn up to $75 per week for participating in the virtual learning platform and doing what they have to do. So we incentivized it. We know that their families are struggling. A lot of families are struggling. We also know it's really hard to get into the virtual learning mode, especially if you haven't been doing it all along. We try to think, again, like transformationally, how do you take a crisis and turn it into a turning point? For our young people, this has been a turning point. While it's really depressing and a lot of horrible, for most of our young people who are participating in the program, they're getting more academic support and education than they've ever received in their schooling. And I can't wait for the grades to come out, and I'm going to do a compare their report cards to see that change.
How many students are you serving?
So we service 45 students school year, and we have 11 kids on the virtual tutoring platform that they self-selected in. And then the rest of the students said that they didn't want to participate in the virtual learning platform, but we were able to get them laptops, and I'm just doing regular case management and check-ins with them.
What we always like to do is take the wisdom of our guests and share it with others regarding how they responded, their intentionality, and anything else. And so for people listening to this and saying, oh, what do I do? How I want to respond to COVID. I want to help out. What are your suggestions?
People come to me all the time and say, I want to volunteer with you. I want to work with the kids, right? And my virtual tutors are really getting a peek inside of how hard it is. Volunteering and engaging doesn't always feel good. And the expectation is that you're going to leave and feel good about yourself. And so if it's so easy to do that, then everybody would be involved in all the work around the world. And unfortunately, philanthropy has shifted, and people wanting to do things is because of the feeling good, because I'm going to hand a homeless man sneakers and take a photograph. That doesn't change that homeless man's long-term trajectory in any real sustainable way, right? And so when I'm talking to people that want to be engaged in the work that we're doing, whether it be crisis relief or otherwise, it's to really think deeply about, why do you want to do this? And how much of yourself and your energy are you willing to give to that? And how much are you willing to challenge yourself about the ideas around volunteering or getting involved? So for example, when we're talking about COVID disproportionately impacting communities of color, and saying things like, well, the people of color have more health issues like diabetes. Well, that's a matter of food access, and that's a matter of food deserts, and that's a matter of health equity. So how much are you willing to get involved in that, right? Because one way to get involved is we're going to do canned goods and all this food banking and all that. And that's wonderful. And I'm glad that people are finding a way to give. But what if we all dug a little deeper and thought more and were more intentional about how we operate every single day in the world, crisis or not, to change the fabric of communities so that they are self-sustaining and that they are healthy? Volunteerism and civic engagement really has to be internalized and not just be about the Instagram moment that you create, but really about the ripple effect that you create in your daily actions. So I know that that's not a good answer that people actually want to hear, but that's the truth of the matter. It's a matter of really using your voice and your position of power to fight for equity and systemic changes, and to be really conscious about why you're choosing to get involved in volunteerism.
And I think, Dana, that point is so well made about volunteering, because there's a spectrum. to your point. There's the deep intentionality and systems change that you advocate for. And then there's the hands-on, I want to feed homeless or disadvantaged in a soup kitchen. And I think for our listeners, your point is, what do you want to do? What kind of outcome are you seeking to engage with? I think that's quite profound.
Yeah, and I think that we have an opportunity right now. We hear Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio talk about right now. They're saying we're going to rebuild better than we were before. Yet none of the actions that are being taken or money being spent would allow me to believe that that's true. We have to be innovative and thoughtful. We have to do things that haven't been done before. And as citizens, we have to demand that that happens. We have to look, what are the things in the budgets getting cut? So again, I really truly believe in being vigilant and mindful and saying I'm choosing to participate because it's the right thing to do, not because I get to post something on Instagram. And also understanding that when you serve others, it's for the betterment of an entire community. It's not like you're doing something good for somebody else. We have to stop being lazy when it comes to volunteerism.
I'm curious, since you are so intentional and smart about this, that because we're working with Points of Light to try and in a post-COVID world, and the world will be different to your point. How do we take the humanity that people have expressed at all levels of the spectrum and really make it a daily, weekly, monthly habit to get engaged, whether it's volunteering, whether it's politically, as you're talking about systems, whether it's, buying products from companies that are truly socially responsible. Do you have any suggestions on how we might add, I always use the term miracle grow, to our system to really get more people to engage and help to evolve the social fabric of our society?
Volunteerism is a system. It's become a system in this country. And giving and donating, it's all a system. And systems need social and cultural shifts to change. It doesn't happen magically. So the way that we talk about philanthropy and the way that we talk about giving and the way that we talk about giving back has to change dramatically in order to have that miracle grow effect, right? It's a culture change. We have to create that culture change. And so I was just reading Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime, and he talks about, how he started making money when he was a teenager, not when he became a professional comedian. And he said, a lot of people talk about you teach a man to fish, you don't just give him a fish, but they leave out the part about you have to give him a fishing pole too. And so I think that that's really the place that we're at. A lot of people acknowledge that, handing out a bag of food at a food bank is a Band-Aid on a bullet wound solution, but it's absolutely necessary because somebody's hungry right now, right? That's a very true statement and we need that and it's important. But the next phase to that is, why are we not looking into, I have a friend over in Baltimore, he runs this thing called City Weeds, and he does hydroponic farming where the core zip code in Baltimore is growing their own food. And then not only do they get to eat that food, then they're selling that food to create economic stability. So how do we shift our models from just handing something out to teaching and empowering and creating a system where volunteerism is married to cultural and social changes that are supported by policy and practice?
That's an incredible vision. And I think that as part of Points of Light Civic Century, that it's like companies that have taken purpose and they've taken it out of the philanthropy bucket to part of their operations.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're saying, to apply that to our volunteerism and civic engagement. I think that's fantastic. And I know I've just learned something that was probably right in front of my nose because I talk about this so much, but you've now stated it for me. So I will talk to the Points of Light folks about that evolution as well. So Dana, you're so smart about engaging with the community and really making an impact. What's the next phase of your COVID relief efforts?
So we're super excited about our next phase, and we have some really tremendous people who have come on board. So if you follow us on social media, it's at NYC Together org on Instagram. You'll be able to see the announcement, which will be coming Friday and then again on Monday. Is we are going to take on the summer youth employment problem as part of the financial destruction of COVID. Unfortunately, New York City has defunded summer youth employment, which would offer young people in communities that are, of course, the hardest hit by Corona and, of course, the hardest hit economically for generations, meaningful employment opportunity and financial opportunity, right? So now you have all these young people who are going to be unemployed, not have things to do over the summer, and they're losing out on that financial opportunity. So we're building out a virtual learning platform where young people will learn about the systemic issues that led to Corona hitting their communities the hardest, and then develop a public health campaign to educate their own communities. So using their voices, their creativity, and placing Corona right in the midst of historical context that led us to this place, create these campaigns that we think, or we know, I have to say unequivocally, I know will be more effective than any other messaging happening around public health and social distancing. And so we are going to be fundraising to hire these young people, develop the virtual platform, and then have these public health campaigns be going out all summer long. So we're super excited about that.
Where might our listeners get information so they can donate? Can you give us the information again?
So you could just go right to our website to donate, which would be nyctogether.org. And if anybody wants to reach out directly to me, if they had ideas or they wanted to donate and they want to do a larger gift and not comfortable going to the website, you could definitely reach out to me. My Instagram is Dana, DANA _ Rachlin, RACHLIN. And we're going to be making those announcements later this week. And then the big one will come on Monday, where the whole campaign will be rolling out. And the target is to employ young people and have young people be the credible messengers around public health and safety for their own communities.
Please keep in touch with us. We love to see the progress and see how we can share that with others that we know in the social responsibility movement.
Oh, we would love that. We have some big celebrities coming on board, but of course we love a corporate donor or a corporate match. The more money we raise, the more kids we can hire.
Two wonderful women from Kentucky, Sandy Cambron and Shanon Blair, and they have a project called Pearl's Memory Babies. So the name of that immediately caused us to say, what is Pearl's Memory Babies? And so Shanon and Sandy, why don't you let our listeners know what is this great idea about?
Well, in 2006, my mother-in-law, her name was Pearl. She had Alzheimer's, dementia, and she was put into a nursing facility when we no longer could help her at home. And she was very lonely and just very, very, she was a very independent woman. And when she was put into the facility, we just saw her withdraw, and she was so unhappy. So my husband and I, we tried many, many different things. We tried the animated puppies that sing and dance, and we went and bought our TV. We just did everything we could think of. And then one day we were out shopping, and I grew up loving my baby dolls. And I told my husband, I said, why don't we try to give her a baby doll and see what happens? So we looked for one that was close to the size of a baby. It was 20 inches long. And I brought it home and it just still didn't suit me. So I decided to redress it and put real baby clothes on it and a receiving blanket on it, wrapped it up and took it to her. And she loved it. Loved it. It made such a difference in her. And then she passed. After she passed, my husband and I started doing this as a gift to each other at Christmas. We went to different nursing facilities. At that time, we didn't have a name. We just did it. And then in 2018, I had a dear friend, Shanon, that I worked with, and her mother became ill with Alzheimer's. And maybe I can let you tell her a little bit about what she experienced.
Yeah. So my mom was diagnosed with Alzheimer's several years before. And as Sandy said, we worked together. I actually hired Sandy, and we knew we had a special bond even back then because she would always say, gee, you remind me of my daughter, and just a special friendship. And during the course of this, I knew that her mother-in-law, Pearl, had Alzheimer's. I didn't know to what extent. I really didn't know the full story. But Sandy would ask me every day when I came into work how my mom was doing because I had to transition my mom and my dad into my house. And my husband and I became their caretakers. And she knew that the struggles that I had as a caretaker, and she knew how hard it was. She had been through it before. So I had to finally transition my mom into a nursing facility. She became ill. I couldn't take care of her any longer. And Sandy approached me one day at work and said, would you care if I gave your mom a baby? And I was a little confused, but
he said, "What baby?"
Because I didn't know the full story at the time. So she let me in on a little bit of the story about how this comforted her mother-in-law. So next day she came in and she actually brought me two babies, and they were in a carrier, and I was really shocked at how they looked because they were like lifelike. I was like, wow, those are like great looking baby dolls. So she asked me if she wanted me, if I wanted her to deliver them to my mom. And she was nice enough to make my mom's roommate one also because they'd like to share things. And I said, no, that's okay. I'm going to go in there. I'll give it to her. So later that evening, I went to the nursing home and I had the carrier with me. And when I walked into the room, I had enough time to pull the baby out. And my mom's roommate immediately just stuck her arms out and started crying and just give her to me, give her to me. So I walked it over to her and she pulled it up to her face and she was rubbing it around her neck. And this is a woman who hadn't had a visitor in 12 years, by the way. And she held it so close and like all I could do was cry. I didn't even say anything. And the nurses that night had a hard time getting it out of her arms to even dress her. So when I came to work the next day, I just told Sandy, like, I was so emotional. And I told her, I said, okay, I understand the baby doll now. And she went on to tell me the full story of Pearl. And because then I could understand it because I witnessed what happened. As I went back to, visit my mom, I visited her just about every day. These baby dolls became the focal point. All the women and even the men wanted to come into the room and hold the baby dolls. So Sandy approached me one day after I was telling her all these stories and how fun it was. And she said that she and her husband, Wayne, wanted to do something special for my mom's facility. And what about if we planned a delivery where we delivered baby dolls and puppies to everybody there? That way they wouldn't have to share them with each other. I was like, wow, that sounds like a lot of fun. So we did. So on Valentine's Day, 2018, we met at the nursing home and she had all the babies and puppies loaded up in the back of her car, which is now known as the Pearl Mobile. And
Great.
She had the red wagons ready to go, and it wasn't planned at all. We just loaded them up and we took them upstairs. And as they were having their Valentine's party, we just went one by one. And as Sandy was delivering, I decided to get out my camera and start taking some pictures and videos. And literally almost every resident there had the same response. It was tears. They would tell us about their kids. It brought something that just, it restored all these awesome memories. So we were there probably 4 hours maybe. And all of the workers, we were all in tears, not a dry eye in the house. and the workers wanted to get a copy of my videos and my pictures. And I normally have my Facebook page that is private. And so what I told them, I think the best way to do this is let me just go on, because we had waivers for everyone. Let me go on, post them on Facebook. I'll set my profile as public, and then you guys can go in and pull down the video, the pictures as you want them, and then I'll close it back up and make it private again. So at 8:00 that night, I posted all the pictures and the videos, and came into work the next morning. And my sister texted me about 8:30, and she said, "Shanon, have you been on Facebook today?" And I said, "No." And she said, "You might want to go on Facebook." That time we had 500,000 shares, and people were just contacting us like crazy. It went viral overnight. So then India pick up what happened from here.
Okay. So then people started coming up to me that day, and because of the Facebook, and they asked me how could they donate. They wanted to help us buy another baby doll to take to somebody else. So by the end of the day, I had all these people, and I went to my daughter and son-in-law and my husband, and I said, "What do we do? This is unbelievable," because we hadn't planned it or anything. So my son-in-law said, we need to set you up a GoFundMe page. So he set up a GoFundMe page that night. And the next morning, it was already growing. And my daughter, she figured out how to set up the nonprofit and get in touch with all the legalities and get all those set in place. And the family just all did it all that night. And by the next day, it was grown again. It was unbelievable. I started crying that night. I said, we hadn't planned this at all. And I didn't feel like it was a plan, but I felt like we were in a big bus and God was driving it.
I was just going to say the Lord, there is a Lord's hand in there. Absolutely.
In this whole thing. And just to give you an idea, within the first 24 hours, we had been contacted by people in 17 different countries because they wanted to know so much about our organization and what we've done, because the videos and the pictures just told such a story.
So let's pivot now to COVID-19. I mean, people are even more isolated. So how have you responded? And I know that, the elderly is truly the greatest population at risk.
We keep our calendar pretty full. We have a waiting list. And so we have had places in line, and we were so excited to get out there because I felt like they needed them even more, being isolated. So I went and bought laundry baskets and put pink and blue satin ribbons through them, wove them in, and we loaded those up with babies instead of our wagons, and puppies and kittens. And we called the facility, and they came out to the porch on the outside, and we gave them the babies, and they took them in and delivered them. And we asked them if they would mind sharing the photos that they took so that we could let people see how their donations are still working during this. Yeah, then, like I said, we had people scheduled, and then after that, it continued. The news kept getting worse and worse, and they called us and said, is there any way that you can still keep us on your list, but come when they allow it to be open again? So in the meantime, all that I can do is I have been actually emailing the nursing facilities, talking to some of the staff and the nurses, and just telling them that we're here and we're still praying for them, and we're getting the baby dolls ready, and everything's here ready to go as soon as we can get there.
Right. And then one thing that has affected me during COVID-19 is I feel like I get a lot of general questions just about caretaking in general, because I can so identify how hard it is for these caretakers to take care of, their elderly parents or loved ones in nursing facilities. And I've gotten quite a few inquiries about, now that this is hit and we can't get into the facility, what is your suggestion, since you've been a caretaker, to be able to still love on my parent or my loved one in the nursing facility? So I've been able to share some ideas, whether it's constantly sending pictures of yourself, even if you're sending them, every day, so they can open them up and they can see you, and they cannot forget what you look like, because by the time this is over with, my fear is, these people are not going to realize who even their children are. They need those constant reminders. So send them the pictures, schedule the FaceTime calls with the staff. Make sure they hear your voice, even if it's over the phone, so they can continue to keep that familiarity, because they will not understand during this time why everybody has abandoned them, because that's what it's like. And you see on social media where people are, doing visitations through the glass, but my mom was on the second floor of a facility that would have worked for her. So able to share ideas, which is really nice, because I wish I had a resource like that, or would have thought to reach out to someone, because those are great ideas you can continue to do even when you can't visit, when you're not in a situation like this with the pandemic.
You started from scratch. You saw a need and you came up with an incredibly creative idea. Sandy and then Shanon joined. Do you have one or two insights that you can share with other people who are listening, who may want to start something that fulfills a need in the marketplace, whether it's during COVID or post-COVID, that they can truly create something as wonderful as you have?
We've actually been asked if people could start chapters, and we actually don't do that, because there again, that's another realm that we have not explored. And like I say, we're small. We're just the two of us and the family behind the scenes. But Shanon and I are the only two that actually go out and do the deliveries and everything. But we get a lot of emails like that. And one thing I always try to encourage them is, if anybody that has anybody that they know that has a memory loss, anyone can go out and purchase a baby doll. Ours are cloth bodies with the rubber hands and arms. They're not really special. They're just a normal baby doll. But when you take their clothes off and remove them and wrap them up in real clothes and soft blankets and make them unique, anybody can do that. And it's not pricey. You can get all prices of dolls, but if you can't afford an expensive doll, you can go, and buy a lesser expensive, and I think they'll still love it.
Mm-hmm. And two, I think there's ways to create different ministries or missions, even having it a price tag, because the people I talk to, even if they can't do that, I'm constantly telling people, just visit. Even if it's for a half an hour and it's somebody you don't even know, just go in, because I feel like Sandy is so special in the way she delivers the baby. And part of it is the baby, but a big part of it too is the way she talks to them, the way she hugs, the way she interacts with them. She treats them like they matter, and they do. And I think a lot of people stay out of nursing homes because they're selfish. It's selfish reasons. It's tough when you're walking by someone and they're nonverbal and they want to hold your hand and try to talk to you, and it's uncomfortable for you. And I'm always telling people, you've got to get past that selfishness and just go visit. You don't even need a baby doll. Just how to make something great, even if it's outside of babies. You just got to do it. You can't rely on an organization, or, it could be a family member that just say, hey, I have a little bit of extra time today. What am I going to do? I'm going to go visit someone for 20 minutes because I want to let them know they matter.
So I think that during COVID-19, there's been this, one of the maybe few silver linings is that people who are invisible in the normal course of life, whether it's, people helping in our local communities with trash collection, or of course our healthcare providers, but also our elderly, that, you're right, they are worthy people, and that to go into a home or facility and just share a story, hold a hand.
If people just think about how they have felt feeling quarantined, felt cut off, they felt lonely because they can't see their kids or grandkids, they can't socialize like they used to be able to, that just described how someone feels in a memory care unit.
And you've delivered how many puppies and babies?
We're close to about 1,000. We're working close to 1,000 now.
And you still have a GoFundMe page, is that correct?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Pearl's Memory Babies?
That's correct.
They can get more information on our Facebook page. If you go to Facebook, you can search Pearl's Memory Babies. And we post all the pictures and videos from every delivery we do. So they're all loaded on there. And as a secondary resource, you can go to our website at pearlsmemorybabies.com.
We have a gentleman who is creating a Match.com type capability for both hospitals as well as volunteers, and it's called Hospital Heroes. So welcome to the show, Keith.
Thanks for having me.
So Keith, tell us a little bit about where you're from and what led you to this idea, and then how is it proceeding?
So I'm based in the San Francisco Bay Area, and my day job is working for a nonprofit called Give to Asia, which connects donors in the U.S., both corporations, foundations, and individuals, with local nonprofits in other countries all across Asia Pacific. And we're one of the only nonprofits that can do grant making to China. And so when the coronavirus outbreak first started back in January, donors were coming to us saying, hey, we want to help. There's this crisis happening in Wuhan. And we very quickly were able to launch a campaign, and we were working with local nonprofits there. And they're, of course, trying to figure out how they can help, because so much of this requires government response. And one of the things that we observed and that was really tragic was how hard this impacted healthcare workers. And so that's a lot of what we ended up funding. And it was something that we saw from afar that local nonprofits could really do a lot of good. As the crisis was coming here, some friends and I decided, hey, let's see if we can build something to support healthcare workers, because we know they're going to be so heavily impacted when this comes here to the rest of the world.
You obviously had the capability, and so it allowed you to truly go quickly. I've heard the term at the speed of the pandemic.
Yes.
Yeah. So how quickly did you get Hospital Heroes up and running?
Yeah. So we came together through a network of people called COVID Accelerator, which is a community that is building projects to help with COVID-19 response. And so my friend Andrew and I, who started this, all of a sudden were connected with a bunch of volunteers. And the challenge that Tito, one of the creators of COVID Accelerator, gave us is, what can you build in 2 weeks? And so we scoped our project down. We said, okay, what is a project we can build with an all volunteer team in just 2 weeks that might have a chance of doing some good? So we're not healthcare professionals. We don't work in public health. And so we had to say, okay, what can we build? And what we decided to build was a tool that makes it easy for healthcare workers or anyone working in a hospital to ask for help, and for volunteers to respond.
So that was really a great kind of requirement to truly get you focused and moving forward. So talk about the app and what's been the response.
So what we built is a web application, sort of a platform that allows hospital workers to post requests for things like, they need meals for their team, they need a safe place to stay so that they don't get their family sick, they need someone to walk their dog. And those requests are then matched by our volunteer coordinators behind the scenes with a huge number of volunteers who showed up and just offered to help. So in the first, we've only been live for less than a month now, and I think we've had over 400 volunteers across the country, and even some from across the world, say, "Yep, sign me up. If there's someone in my area, I will help them."
And so can you share with us some stories? I'm sure you have a lot of the match outcome.
I think one of the most ambitious requests that we had was from an ER doc in Brooklyn who said, "I just need food for my entire team as often as possible." we have food for 50 to 60. And one of our volunteers took that as a challenge and figured out how to have this was in the early days when food delivery was uncertain, and found a way to have pizza for 50 delivered to this hospital in Brooklyn. So that felt really good to see those photos come back. And there are other requests, just these touching requests. There was a nurse in Santa Cruz who works in San Jose, and so has a long commute, and she had a golden retriever that normally is a therapy dog in the hospital, but she didn't want to bring the dog during the pandemic, so she needed someone to just take care of her dog. And so we get these these simple requests that are just small things we can do to make frontline healthcare workers' lives a little bit easier.
So do you need more volunteers?
We would love more volunteers because it's a big country. And so even though we have lots of volunteers in some areas, more coverage is great. But the biggest thing, honestly, that we need is connecting with more healthcare workers who need the help, because they're really busy. They don't necessarily know this exists. So if there's someone in your life or someone who could use help and maybe is afraid to ask for it or doesn't have the resources already in their network, we might be able to help them out. This is just one small project. There's so many people doing amazing things out there to help hospitals in their individual communities. And really, the thing we were trying to solve is what's the tool that anyone can use anywhere to ask for help if they don't have those resources in their personal network. So we would love to get the word out and just make this available to people who need it.
I'm just curious, how much are your volunteers? Have they cut back some of their offerings because of the stay-at-home mandate, or are they volunteering virtually, or are they all doing hands-on?
We encourage our volunteers to make sure they're following any local guidelines on social distancing, and so a lot of the services really do depend on some third party, like a food delivery or offering space. So we want them to make sure that they're being careful, but we haven't seen any drop off. I think there's actually just an amazing outpouring of support. Everyone understands the sacrifices that our healthcare workers are making, and I think there's a big appetite to help when that help is asked for.
Absolutely. So what's the website that people can go to sign up?
So folks can sign up to volunteer or to request help at hospitalhero.care, and you can find us there and get in touch. We also welcome offers from businesses if you are looking for a way to donate services from your business. I think we're all doing what we can, and if this can help even one person in your community, then that would make our day.